This is the Event Industry Advisory Group. I've heard a lot about you whilst I've been researching and prepping for today, and was established to provide a strong, credible and unified sector voice during the pandemic. Otherwise known as EIAG, independently chaired, the membership is drawn from across the sector and administered by Visit Scotland's Events Directorate. During the pandemic, EIAG provided a vital forum for consultation and discussion, directly informing and influencing government response. The group's term has recently been extended and its remit refreshed, focusing on identifying and will help to address key industry challenges, working to help inform and shape policy, safeguarding Scotland's global status as the perfect stage for events and taking oversight of the action plan for the refreshed National Events Strategy. Our panel today is made up of representatives of the 15-strong group. This is a big panel. I bet you have lively conversations. It would be great if you were to briefly introduce yourselves in the kind of most showcasing way and give us a quick roundup as to your accolades and why you're here. We'll start with you.
I'm Geoff Ellis. I'm the CEO of DF Concerts. So we run events like Transmit, Glasgow, Edinburgh and Stirling summer sessions. We do lots of concerts we own King Tut's Wawa Hut, so that we do concerts at club level all the way up to stadium level with the likes of, Beyonce, Jerry Cinnamon, Calvin Harris, etc. So we just work in Scotland, and we've been going for many, many years. I've been up here for 33 years now, so.
So you're responsible for some of the best times Scotland's ever seen.
I'm putting them on. I'm not responsible for them. It's the artists who deliver that. But
Beyonce, more of that, please.
Brilliant. Hello, everybody. I'm Claire Dow. I am currently the Culture Strategy Lead Officer for Leisure and Culture Dundee, but I'm on secondment over from Dundee City Council, where I led the events team. And the event team in Dundee do a number of things. We are welcoming hosts to people who want to come to Dundee to events. And we also do our own programme of activity at Christmas and over the summer. And I also convene the local authorities. Now, what are we called? The Scottish Local Authority Event Officers Group. We got together during COVID, and that's a safe space for us all to come together and discuss some of the things that are particular to local authorities when delivering and hosting events.
Lovely. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Duthie. I have been with the Scottish Event Campus, just recently completed 40 years with the campus, as I've been privileged to be part of this industry for a long time. The last quarter of those 40 years, I've been Chief Executive. The Scottish Event Campus captures live entertainment through the Hydro, which is one of the busiest live entertainment arenas in the world, business events through conferences and exhibitions, and many other types of events as well. During COVID, I received a phone call from Paul Bush asking me if I would be prepared to chair a group that he wanted to set up to coordinate a voice for the industry into government to help us address some of the challenges the industry was facing, which I was delighted to take on board to hopefully play my part in addressing some of those challenges.
Thank you.
I'm Alan Laidlaw. I'm the Chief Executive of RAS, which is a charity behind the Royal Highland Show, one of Scotland's largest outdoor events held annually. But we also run the Royal Highland Centre at Ingliston, and coined the other day as being the home of dance music in Scotland and sheep and Shakespeare. So we run a significantly varied group of events, Royal Highland Show, dance events, business conferences and events as well. And like Peter, got a call in COVID times about where we were and what was going on in the sector, and really gave us an opportunity for really talking about the challenges that the group were facing, and an opportunity to come together and talk about how we could survive the immediate threat of COVID and ultimately, hopefully now thrive going forward. And the Minister talked about that earlier. That thriving piece I think is important if we want to deliver on Paul's ambitions.
I want to ask very quickly, just out of interest, with such a varied programme, what's the latest surprise where you've like, wow, the sheep really are just as popular as something that might be more expected?
Sheep are very popular. We've got our hide and sheep campaign all around Scotland at the moment. 2,000 fluffy sheep hiding around Scotland, so go and find them if you can. We hosted the World Sheep Shearing Championships last year.
Amazing.
And the public engagement in something that lots of people feel is a slightly random event, and even Paul sort of raised his eye when we said, what was going on. But I think people are interested where their food comes from. So they're interested in about food and agriculture. Scotland's landscapes are really important. But also, they just want a safe and well-presented venue to host things. And I think that's one of the things Scotland has got. We've got an opportunity to lever on that.
Thank you.
Well, we don't do sheep shearing in Glasgow yet, but there's always an opportunity. I'm Susan Deighan, I'm Chief Executive of Glasgow Life, and Glasgow, as Scotland's largest and most diverse city, hosts events of that same scale and diversity. So Glasgow Life, we have our regular programmes of events, everything from Celtic Connections to the Glasgow Mela, Scotland's largest Mela, and recently host some of those amazing athletics that you saw on the screen. But we also partner with the likes of Peter, and we host the most international delegates for conferences in Glasgow, and there's a hugely thriving business event sector, and work with Geoff in making sure that everybody knows that Glasgow is a UNESCO City of Music. I joined the Events Industry Advisory Group post-COVID, and so maybe my reflections on it as being part of Glasgow Life during that time was it really was such an important forum through those really dark times for our sector, and really was that kind of touchstone, that point of collaboration that helped us plan the way out of COVID, but also emerging from it was that incredible report that both Paul and the Minister referenced as the power of wellbeing and the role of events in the wellbeing economy. And I think that has set a new tone for events and the purpose of events in Scotland and in society. So I think the work of the group has really helped recovery, but also set direction for the future.
Thank you.
And I'm Julia Amour. Hi, I'm the Director of Festivals Edinburgh, which is the sector development body for the 11 major international festivals in the city, some of which you saw on the screen earlier. So they start with the Science Festival, which is actually already underway in a sort of under the radar way, because the schools are already in the City Arts Centre kind of, getting literally arm deep in blood in some cases as they do fake operations and make slime and all sorts of wow stuff. And that obviously goes through the year, with peaking in August with some of the best known and most internationally renowned of Scotland's festivals. And then in the autumn-winter season, we celebrate some very Scottish traditions with the Storytelling Festival at Halloween and with Edinburgh's Hogmanay. And we get together as a cluster. We have done since that report that Paul mentioned, Thundering Hoofs, in the noughties. To work on shared challenges, and by God were there some of those during COVID. So being part of the industry advisory group's been absolutely invaluable to kind of amplify that response at a national level. And I guess with not only with all those festivals, but with our stakeholders, we kind of came out with a manifesto, a vision post-COVID about having global solidarity, community connections, and valuable skills and work at the core of our Edinburgh Festivals cluster. And working with the whole of the system, including all my colleagues up on stage, around making sure that there are vibrant, sustainable gathering places in Scotland in a net zero future, which is a huge challenge, and that we all have the kind of resilience, partnership and investments to kind of take that forward. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and really look forward to discussing all of that.
Thank you. I'd be interested to know how important that sense of collaboration and network is. Because I've been learning a lot. I've been here 3 years and taking on the role of chair of Edinburgh Art Festival at the same time as having so many different roles, within my career, which is a great challenge, and I love it. But the intricacies, particularly of this city, a festival very much run on tourism, events and festivals specifically, how do we break down the barriers of competition and work together? How important is it that we do that?
I mean, I think that the festivals in Edinburgh already benefit from the collaboration that exists. And I know that the director of the art festival was new a couple of years ago as well. And, actually having the the system that we've created in Edinburgh, and parallel systems all over the country, which, whether it's Creative Dundee or Glasgow Life and all of the structures that exist to try and bring people together, we are quite a fragile system because we're intangible cultural heritage. We don't necessarily have the bricks and mortar that other parts of Scotland's landscape has. So I think that means we have to work even harder to kind of get that value across and make sure that the barriers are coming down, because as we could see, the barriers are really going up. And I think unless we make that common cause and try and be in all of the different places, and none of us individually can do that, but maybe if we spread that task out, we can do that.
Yeah,
we can really start to open the doors on what this actually means for a very treasured sector, but a sector that's under threat.
And I'm just really glad that as a collective you exist, because I very much want to advocate for us all joining the dots, particularly across cities. And Glasgow, for example, is so close, and I would love for us to feel even closer in the cultural sectors. Challenges. What are the challenges? Has anyone got any examples off the bat?
Well, so I think as part of collaboration as well. One of the things that's most striking coming out of the EIAG forming was how much everybody has in common with each other. So, and as a live music promoter doing outdoor concerts, we have more in common with the R&A doing golf than the only difference is that they're putting golf on a stage, we're putting live music on a stage. Everything else is the same. We're hiring staging, we're hiring fencing, we're dealing with police, we're dealing with counter-terrorism, we're dealing with stewarding, marketing, so much is similar, whether it's a local authority event, whether it's a commercial concert, whether it's a football match, a rugby match, whatever. So we're all in the same boat, and I think we probably all knew that, but we didn't come together as much, ever before than as we did during COVID. And those challenges, I think, are pretty much the same for everybody. It's competing for events and audiences, talent, and but for me, it's an artist. For the golf, it might be an event. For football, it's the Euros or whatever. But you're competing on an international scale to get events in. My competition does mainly come from other concert promoters. It comes from other cities. It comes from the north of England, from London. An artist like Usher, who's just added a 10th Hydro, isn't doing any show in Scotland. It's more productive financially for him to add one more London show than to come to Scotland. But we're also in competition with Belgium, with France. If an American artist wants to do 10 shows in Europe, they have a fee. They go where they can get the availability and where they can get the money. So that's where the competition is, and I think that's true for everybody. We're all fighting to get content into Scotland, but costs are a huge issue for everybody. And I think between 2019 and now, costs in general for outdoor events have gone up about 45%, and that's across the board, not just in Scotland, everywhere. So that is a huge challenge, and we have to keep a lid on that as an industry, whether you're doing the Royal Highland show, whether you're doing the Six Nations rugby. We've all got to kind of keep on top of those costs and ensure that there's enough supply of kit in the market as well, because post Brexit, obviously Brexit's been the mother of all evils in lots of ways, but for equipment supply, for staffing and everything, it's had a detrimental effect on the whole industry.
I think building on that, one of the big key issues for me is the resilience or lack of it in the industry that's been caused by COVID, where many businesses have been drained of cash resources, drained of reserves, and therefore are unable to take risks to try and move things forward. I think one of the things that became clear through discussions at the advisory group was the fact that the reliance we all have on the whole ecosystem in the industry, every aspect of the industry is crucial to its success. We run venues, but nothing would happen in the venues without promoters, without the technical teams that provide support services, without stewarding, without catering. All of these aspects of the industry need to be in good health to allow the industry to move forward positively. And I think the value of events is one of the things that's come out that was touched on by both Paul and by the Minister this morning, an increasing recognition, I think, of the value of events, not just in economic terms, although huge that is, because events underpin about 50% of the tourism spend in Scotland, and I think there's a recognition of that starting to come through. Paul touched about it as being a driver of growth, but also that health and well-being agenda. So we need to build on that recognition to take the industry forward. We need to use that to exploit, support, help, recognition, to help build businesses, to help support, to get young people into our industry, to build new businesses, to give people the space to innovate. But that lack of resilience is one of the challenges certainly that we're fighting.
Can I maybe just chip in a wee bit about that as well? Because what you're talking about is the why. Why is it we do events, and what has come out, especially in Glasgow, we've been doing some consultation in our new cultural strategies around relevance for our citizens. So that understanding of why we do events, what's the benefit for a big city like Glasgow investing in events, a country like Scotland investing in events, all those things that you've talked about. So I think there's a real challenge, but if it always an opportunity, I always like to think that they are a challenge. The other side of that challenge is always an opportunity, is to be clearer about why events are important for Scotland, why events are important for Scotland, but it has to include our citizens, it has to include our people. We've got to be clear why we do events, and what the benefit is for our citizens.
And if I can just come in on that one, I think there's something really important about, you touched on it, all of you, in terms of workforce and developing and the train of talent coming through. I think what we're seeing in communities is, we had a lovely video about volunteers, how great it is for these mega events to have volunteers and how that's awesome. But actually at community level, an awful lot of events are run by volunteers. We're not seeing succession planning. We're not seeing people coming through those pathways into the industry aren't there in the same way. And actually what we're seeing is a gap between some community events and then new folk going, oh, didn't there used to be something on? Oh, we should put something on. And they don't necessarily have the expertise. They don't necessarily have that history of having done it, or they haven't had their mate force them to take over when their mate used to do it, which happens a lot. So I think there's something about why do we do events, not just the mega events, not just the big events, but also it's really important in our communities, in our spaces, in our towns, that those other smaller, locally run things are happening. And they have all the same challenges around equipment. They have all the same challenges around workforce, and all the same challenges in terms of measuring that impact.
The point on why we do events shouldn't be lost in here. You know, it should just be a given. You know, for in this audience, it should be a given, and we convince ministers and those who aren't on brief to get that point. I was in here the other night for a talk about devolution. 25 years since the Scottish Parliament was created, 25 years since we had more influence over things that happen in Scotland. And there's a lot of chat about the ability to be confident. You know, Scotland getting into World Cups and football and doing well. You know, countries come out of recessions on the back of events, whether that be sporting or cultural. And we need to get that right. And we have to have a confidence. And I think at the moment, Paul made the point, we've got a lot of delivery track record, we've got a lot of history, we've got a lot of pedigree. But if we, you know, underinvest in that, or we overstate its impact at the moment at a key junction point, then we're going to lose that structure. And I think that the thing that the group found through COVID was that there's a huge degree of agreement that if we get this wrong, we're in a hole, and we need to collaborate, we need to work together to sort of optimise the impact. And that'll mean different things for everybody. And I think that's where, you know, government, policymakers, investors, sponsors, philanthropists cannot underestimate the impact that they can have for positive well-being, economic growth, tourism, etc. So for me, it's a bit of a cliche, but you know, it's either now or never. Because if we lose the infrastructure in the sector, then stuff just gets harder to deliver. Paul's touched on some of the competitors we've got out there. If we lose ground to those competitors, I don't see the catalyst that will allow us to get it back. So bank it now, invest in it, protect it, or we'll be able to rue this day.
I think I would like to remind everybody, just from having lived in England until 3 years ago, I am half Scottish and I care a lot about this country. But now I'm kind of new and involved in, you know, cultural, artistic scene, and it's exciting. We should have and find that language of confidence in collective, because there is a view that we are progressors. And I felt that, especially when I first moved. I felt like I could get conversations. I felt like people were passionate about the heritage of the arts and everything that we're discussing today, the intersections of what that means in terms of events, leisure, tourism, visiting, moving, going places, landscape, nature, sustainability, the whole gamut of exciting things that we live for. And I think people do get excited globally about Scotland and coming to Scotland. And I think that we should go boldly, basically, and also use the opportunity to truly diversify beyond buzzwords and, kind of well-written initiatives, and keep our ears close to the ground by speaking to the next generation of those who will be sitting here in a few years' time, looking into our communities and asking those who would never go to, like, perhaps some of the events that we go to and we have access to, and we feel confident in ourselves to navigate and book tickets to go to something weird on the fringe or whatever, and invite people to be part of the progress that I believe that we can create, and to really address that elephant in the room when it comes to diversity, in terms of diversity of thinking, diversity in race, gender, and general equality, so that we can feel exciting and welcome for everybody, because we're an exciting place.
I think we can't underestimate what Scotland has to offer. We've got a small event coming to us in June, just around the Royal Highland Show, and I got an email from somebody from the States this morning, and she's delayed her retirement to come to this event because she said it was on my bucket list to do Scotland. So she's in charge of all the international fairs in the US, all the state fairs, and she says Scotland's on her bucket list. So to come to an event in Scotland, she sent me her whole itinerary. She asked me if I knew somebody in Skye and all that sort of stuff, and thankfully we do. But she's delayed her retirement by 15 months to come to a small event in Scotland because it's on her bucket list.
I'm not surprised. It's an exciting place to come to.
Can I just pick up on that? So I thought it was really interesting that the minister in her speech, perhaps an ad lib, talked about citizenship. And I actually really think that the events sector in Scotland, in all its diversity, is a way that people express their citizenship. I call it cultural citizenship, but that includes sporting and, whatever your culture is, and you can express your culture. And I totally agree, Gemma, that we need to connect up the different cultures of Scotland, and events, because they are that catalyst for innovation, are one of the ways that we can do that. And then, from the Edinburgh Festival's point of view, even more so global citizenship, which was the phrase that was used, because we are on the northwestern edge of Europe. I grew up a Highlander, and I, couldn't wait to kind of, experience the whole of the world. And in the very dangerous times that we live in globally, it's connecting, and it's that power of connection that will help us at all sorts of different levels, kind of find our way through times which are challenging for us personally, but challenging for us geopolitically as well. And I know that's a very grand statement to make about events, but it after an era where we have been so atomized, I think that Scotland has the power of connectivity because it's a small country and it has lots of different networks, and that is one of the most powerful arguments in my view to continue with this. And just one final point: I think data will be queen, Paul. I would say data will be queen, and that is the date if we can connect up. I think also, however, we can't rest on our laurels, and I hear what you're saying, and there is that kind of global affinity with Scotland and what it stands for. But what is contemporary Scotland look like? What does contemporary Scotland feel like? I think we have to. There are so many competitors internationally and the rest of the UK as well. So, for example, in the business event sector, we find that people think, Glasgow, why would you go to Glasgow? It's that northern corner of Europe. But then they come and they find that welcome. They understand that we have the skills, the experience, we have the venues, so we probably need to bring a bit more investment in some of those venues to kind of maintain a position in that business events world. But we have to also acknowledge that the world is changing, and we can't just become Duthie Scotland. We have to also be bold contemporary Scotland.
Yeah.
And back to the why. So what does that look like? What are the values that underpin a modern, contemporary, outward-looking event-led nation such as Scotland. I think that's a really important space for the events industry advisory group to have a conversation and also include our citizens in that.
I think bringing...
Sorry, I was going to say, could I mention one more challenge, which is also an opportunity, and looking at the Minister here as well, is the unintended consequences of policies and legislation that can affect us all. And, I know there's discussions going on about, levies on, disposable paper cups, etc. And it's really important, and here's the opportunity, that we have the EIAG now, so consultation and early consultation with industry is crucial, because we all support going to net zero. I think everybody within the events industry supports that. We just need to make sure that Scotland doesn't bring in legislation that we can't comply with, because the infrastructure isn't there. For example, cup washing facilities are not there yet in Scotland to do large scale reusable cup washing. So that's something that the legislation can't come in before the capability of doing what the desired outcome is, and that's getting rid of all single use cups. We've all stopped using plastic cups, but paper cups are they're required for the outdoor events, partly because of licensing, and partly because of scale, and whether that's golf, whether it's rugby, whether it's concerts. So again, that opportunity, the IAG is here, and Peter sharing that as a great conduit to get everybody's opinion in one go, and be it from golf to rugby to the Royal Highland show to Beyonce at the Hydro, or Stevie Nicks at the Hydro, or whoever.
It would be interesting to perhaps talk a bit more about policy and shaping that. What can be done? The right people are in the room to pitch to.
I think through the group, we touched on how you touched on the English market. You can't collect this group of people in Yorkshire, never mind in England. So to be able to have that accessibility, network, availability of ministers, policymakers, civil servants, and I was reflecting the other day, some of the stuff that we achieved through COVID was, we were sitting with Scottish Government colleagues on a Tuesday at 2:00, and at Wednesday at 2:00, the First Minister was announcing that policy. 24-hour policy making. Nobody wants to be doing that as a de facto sort of position, but if it needs to happen, it can happen. Now we're getting back to that place where everything needs to be crunched and ground and pulled apart, consulted on again, and delayed. And actually, one of the things that Scotland has to be is agile in policy making. And the group's done a really good job. We've touched on accommodation, policing, sustainability. And if you've got an attuned business group like the group is, linking with policymakers and decision makers and parliamentarians, you should be in a place where unintended consequences do not happen. And that should be our aspiration, is that the linkages from grassroots to Holyrood, from ministers to the people and talent on the ground is absolutely linked. And if Scotland can't have that ambition to do that, we're in a really bad place.
I think just building on that, and the Minister mentioned the fact that events cut across all sorts of sectors within government. And I think what we had seen during COVID was the emergence of policies on a siloed-based approach from government, where a whole series of policies, which all had merit in their own right, but individually, could be supported, collectively could have had a massively detrimental impact on our industry, because all of it was either increasing cost or reducing revenue. And I think being able to feed back to government that, policy making needs to be looked at in the round, and the issues fully understood. And I think we're in a better place now to be able to have that conversation. I think the group has built up a trusted link into government, and so we are a voice they come to and listen to. And I think the opportunity is for everyone in this room to be able to feed into that group and into that conversation. If there's issues that bother you, there are routes to feed into the group. And I think working together, as Alan alluded to, Scotland is that connected place. And that's why any organisers of major events I talk to are massively excited about coming to Scotland. We had the privilege of hosting COP26 in our venues, 38,000 badged attendees in the middle of a pandemic, the biggest and most successful COP ever. We've got Interpol coming. we need to build on these successes. By bringing all these international visitors into the country, they get to see the rest of the country, they get to see what Scotland has to offer, and we can then build on that and provide additional experiences for them.
Just to add on that, what the Events Advisory Industry Group does so well is that shared understanding. We've got a room full of people with similar interests, but different ways of approaching the work, and different networks out there across the room today, but beyond. And I think that we genuinely all bring those voices into the space, and we don't all agree all the time, and that's really valuable. And that also means that the feedback that we give is true, is genuine, and is representative of the conversations that we're having out in the world.
Well, I think I was very much reflecting on the fact that we've got the commercial and the charitable sectors and public funders with big workforces of their own, and people who work very extensively with freelance workforces. And we know all of that is part of the complex and diverse picture of the sector. So that does feed in greatly. We can be a sort of early warning system for each other as well, which I think is great. And that hopefully serves the whole sector. I mean, people may know that an issue that the Edinburgh festivals have been concerned about for a long time is the very temporary rental of short-term let properties that are people's own homes in August. But we now find that that's a conversation that we can feed into across the whole group, because only half of local authorities across the whole country actually have a policy for that. So in the future, if we want to have an Island Games or a rurally based major event in Scotland, we're all going to have to figure that out as a room, if you like. So, I think these kinds of issues are really valuable to be able to look at through that whole industry collaborative lens.
And we can't underestimate that discussion is happening all around the world. So I know of a conference bid that's been done this morning for interviews, and I think it's in Delhi, the discussion, and they have flagged up one of their biggest risks for Edinburgh is the cost of hotels, cost of accommodation. Right. So that's been debated about a conference in 2026 in Delhi this morning. And it's one of their major risk questions coming back, and they've identified the chatter about that. They've been able to pick it up online, and that's one of the first questions that's going to be made at that presentation.
But back to competition, that just shows you how competitive the events world is. So going forward, whether it's cost, whether it is broadcasting then the values that we as a country can demonstrate through hosting events, we have to continue to reset our USP. What is it that makes Scotland the place to bring your event? It might be maybe a wee bit more expensive, but see in terms of your audiences, then actually it's a more acceptable place. So I think all of that kind of ecosystem, that international ecosystem, we still need to come back to what is Glasgow's. Sorry, get myself here. Glasgow / Scotland.
Glasgow, yes. Forever.
Other cities are available. Yeah.
I think the key to that is understanding the event organisers' needs and aspirations, and I think Scotland is uniquely placed to help deliver an answer in response to that.
Innovation keeps coming to my mind. I know we're in a space to do it. We've got the space, the beautiful landscape. I think what we lack in hot weather, we have like in warmth of spirit. And I just feel excited. I do. It's exciting. Like, a lot of the things that you're saying are pretty insightful. Are there anything else? Are there other thoughts on opportunity, positivity, or an example of something that's gone really well that is an example of what we're talking about? That's something completely different.
I can see Susan's got her hand up.
Yeah, sorry.
Just, I think one of the things that we do so well is that collation of data across the sector. I know it's come up a few times this morning in terms of impacts. And going forward, how are we going to measure impacts? What's important to us to measure going forward? And I was delighted to be on the health and wellbeing subgroup of the EIAG. And I think those working groups, those subgroups that can commission research, that can look at particular topics, is something that's really interesting going forward, particularly as we try and work out what we want to measure, but crucially how. How do we measure wellbeing impacts? I think the economic calculator, brilliant. What a great tool. But we'd like that for all the other things that we've got. So I think that the collation collectively of our data is really important, and that sort of standardisation of what we're collecting will really help that. So I think there's a real opportunity, in terms of reporting going forward.
I think it would be remiss of me also not to mention the work that's done by the Event Scotland team to support the group. Yeah. Paul and his team put in a power of work to facilitate the group's conversations and to take forward actions, issues, agendas for us, which has been massively helpful.
I just don't think we should underestimate the innovation that has taken place, and maybe a little bit of reflection about to Claire's point then about evaluation. So whether it's having integrated para events across the UCI cycling championships, we've taken that for granted. We just did it, but actually I don't think maybe people understand that the level or the depth of conversation that has to take place with, our kind of the governing bodies of sport to kind of say, well, no, this is the right thing to happen. Or the work that venues like the SEC and SWG3 in Glasgow do around sustainability because it's the right thing to do. I think we are in danger of taking our innovative approach for granted a bit and always looking for a big innovation, when actually that individual, incremental innovation is actually what then sets us apart. Mm-hmm.
I think in sustainability and innovation, the real challenge is that anyone can have a pop at an event to say it's not sustainable. Because actually we could all be on Zoom now and we could all just be sitting at home, not have travelled, not done anything. But every single person today will spend money in Edinburgh. They will have a human interaction with people that they wouldn't have at home. They will learn something. I've met 2 or 3 new people this morning already. And I think that through COVID, lots of people realised how important events were that they hadn't recognised before. They were isolated, they were nervous, they were anxious, and events brought them together and that opportunity to do that. And I think Scotland's approach to events and sustainability, to say events are important to us, bringing people together, not being isolated on the western flank of Europe, all of these points are really key. And if we get them right, we'll have a thriving sector. And if we get them wrong, we'll have a missed opportunity. And that's where micro wins and small points and joined up policies, Geoff says, around sustainability will make much more of a difference than, flagship policy. And I think that's where the group and the room need to make sure they have an influence to say best value sustainability for Scotland, whether that's in pure carbon and eco terms or if it's in pure financial terms, actually joins up. And I think there's some work around just transition. I'm working with the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce around events in Edinburgh. That data collection is key, and actually having rooms like this to say I've got this data set, you've got that data set, Peter's got this data set. How do we combine them for maximum impact?
I think that ability to share best practice as well is a useful output from the group, and again that can be disseminated through the Event Scotland team.
Yeah, I can make a positive point as well. There's definitely an appetite for events in Scotland. We do events very well, and as everybody said, we've got a long history of doing major events really well. But everybody was worried that coming out of COVID, people would be reluctant to buy tickets for events because people didn't want to come together. The messaging had all been, events are high risk. Okay, we're open, but be careful. Well, the public are buying tickets. And certainly, I can only talk from my perspective, but I see other people's concerts doing very well also, and sport doing well. We just put CV Nicks on sale. I think it'll be our record ever gross for a concert at the Hydro. It's phenomenal, and the top price tickets are selling first as well. There's a real demand now. Obviously, I'm not saying there isn't a cost of living crisis. Of course there is, but people are choosing to go to events and choosing to make events a special night out, and whether that's a concert at Barrowland or the Usher Hall or the Hydro, Murrayfield, wherever, they're buying the tickets and they want to go. And those ticket prices are higher than they were, 5 years ago. They have to be, even for promoters and artists to even earn anything like they were doing pre-pandemic, with all the extra costs. The cost of touring has gone up, but people are buying tickets, and that's really good. And we should celebrate that fact. People want to come to events in Scotland, and they're voting with their wallets and buying tickets. So that's really good.
We definitely have a great audience in Scotland. Folk come out to stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
There's a few minutes for questions from the audience if you would like to get involved. I would like to rally for more saunas as we're thinking about health and well-being. I think we should take a bit of that Nordic culture and make sure that we prepare for the cold winters. Have we got questions?
I had a well-being session meeting in a sauna the other night.
Yes.
Never been more uncomfortable as going to a meeting in my life. But it was great discussion, completely different atmosphere, obviously. But yeah, it took a different type of sort of mental.
Did you feel good afterwards?
Yeah, we did, and it was just down in North Berwick, and we went for a sea swim in the dark afterwards.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm all for it. So someone can approach you with a microphone. We have someone here. Please put your hand up if you would like to ask our panel any question at all. It can be anything. No? Come on. Yes.
Room full of shy event organisers.
Hi, and thank you for this morning already. I am Brian Sharp. I'm the programme leader from the University of VisitScotland for the Events Management and the Tourism Management programme. And given the emphasis on recruitment and workforce retention, I wondered what better integration we could have within the industry and education. We've seen lots of our graduates here already this morning, and we'd really like to continue that to provide that skilled professional workforce.
Thank you.
Well, I suppose just I'd come and talk to us. I mean, I think what you've got here are people who are passionate about events. So come and talk to us, bring us your ideas. I always think sometimes that maybe in our roles, we can get a wee bit far away from actually what it's like just to be coming new into industry. And I think there's some quite interesting things coming out. I don't know if anybody heard the thing about why they're struggling to recruit teachers is because they actually have to go into the school every day and can't do that mixed model of hybrid working, so. And the event sector is a similar one. You can't do your working from home. So actually understanding what it's like on the job, getting a feel for it, and understanding what the benefits are. But back to, I think, some of the comments that I think Paul said, we have to look after our people better. And actually, just because you're in events, you can do, 40-hour days. Oh, my cat, there are on Thursday, but it does. You do it for a year. You do. So I think we need to talk to you and say, okay, well, what is it your young people are interested in?
I think that transition from education into employment is really important. I think there's a lot of good activity going on, but it's very fragmented. I think different employers have different opportunities. Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, for example, I know runs a developing young workforce scheme, etc. There are apprenticeship programs, but again, it's a little bit disjointed. So it's a very valid question, and I think there is more we could do to make it a more cohesive approach, to make it easier for people to find their way from education into employment opportunities, whether it's apprenticeships, whether it's workplace experience, or various aspects of that.
And I think maybe this is the kind of group that could really help in this whole network. Could help demystify what's happening with Skills Development Scotland and the whole kind of, future framework. I know there's a session about that this afternoon, but I mean, modern apprenticeships have not been the right kind of format for a lot of us in this industry. So if we could collectively do something, I think that would be amazing.
From an education point of view, every event I know needs a volunteer or some support or some ad hoc work. I have a standing team of 50 in my organisation throughout the year. We use over 1,000 different people around different events for us a year. So if you've got an idea as a young person, LinkedIn's a brilliant tool. Don't just click connect on a chief executive like Peter. He's very important. He's very busy. He wants to know what the connection is. If you say, I know about your event, I would like to work, volunteer, be involved, come along, lots of things, I think you'll get a surprisingly positive response. We've got some brilliant young talent working in our business. They're scaring the wits out of some of our experienced people, as we've seen with the co-hosts today. There's not many sectors. You don't get into the financial sector by volunteering. You can get into the event sector very easily by putting your hand up, being involved and stepping forward.
Very interesting. I think a lot of it is about connecting the dots and finding the portals. Like if I knew the site to go to when I'm advising young people who ask me, how they can get jobs and have careers like mine, I would tell them where to go. But I'm often like back at the drawing board, really like mapping out something for them. And it would be nice if there was just a cohesion.
I started volunteering in the city, just putting up posters and weeping equipment and everything. And
I do think that is more problematic for a lot of people now, though. I think, given fair work and policies, we've got to be thoughtful about that.
My first radio job was on Festival FM from the Gilded Balloon And at the end, I was asked, like, oh, what are you going to go on to do, Gemma? And I said, well, I'll be on Radio 1 by next year anyway. I was. I was only joking. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much. This has been fantastic. I'm a new event organiser. My name is Ryan Bagley. I run the Scottish Games Network. We launched Scottish Games Week in 2022, so I'm still learning. This was not my plan, but this has been fascinating. Just to pick up on Paul's point from earlier, if you want to know more about games, esports, my lot are terrible at going to anything that is not game specific. So I'm around all day. If I can help anybody in the room incorporate games, esports, something a little bit more playful, please come and hunt me down, or my partner Ruby at the Events Hub. We would love to talk to everybody.
That's very nice. Thank you. I don't know much about games, so we can have a chat. I want to know more. Okay, we've got two over here. We haven't. Okay, I think that will be our. Put your hand right up so I can count how many. 1, 2, 3, 4 more questions. 5. If we talk at the speed of light. There's a lady at the back there.
Hi, I work for a large estate in Midlothian and have over the past 5 years incorporated events and large-scale events and working quite closely with Visit Scotland into the scheme. We have a number of events that we have staged up ready to go, and we've since COVID lost all of the corporate sponsorship. Being a large estate with a large Palladian home, we have it constant costs just to keep the place going. Do you have recommendations on how we should restart? Because we can't do we've got investment in infrastructure, but we can't go forward with the events without sponsorship. Any suggestions where I should go from here?
Sponsorship's really hard. I mean, I just being honest, and I mean, in our event portfolio in Glasgow with, the hundreds of thousands of attendances, we really struggled to get sponsorship. I think that the world of sponsorship has moved from that transactional relationship to much more CSR. So I think it's maybe not sponsorship, but looking for a different financial model.
It's about finding what works for the support that you're looking for. So the Royal Highland Shows had one of the longest corporate sponsorships in the world, with RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, NatWest Group supporting us since the early 80s. But we also have very small level sponsors from the farming community. And I think, I used to run some large estates, and you need to find the why and who wants to support you, what the economic impact will be. We issued some economic impact from the Royal Highland Show that said we were as big as Hogmanay. Lots of people got stuffed by that, but having those impact figures, speaking to your local authority, speaking to South Scotland Enterprise, those sort of organisations, because if there's something broken with the commercial model, you quite often have to look to government or other sectors to help. It might be somebody philanthropic, it might be taking a joint venture punt, but just doing the same stuff is going to get you just the same results. So look at doing things a bit differently.
In terms of sponsorship, one of the keys is looking at what can you offer in terms of activation of that sponsorship, as opposed to just going out looking for a sum of money. It's understanding what your audience can deliver for that sponsor, or what your event can deliver for that sponsor, and trying to quantify and evidence it. And by building that picture, I think you've got a better chance of success in attracting some form of support.
I think it's alignment, really. It's finding a sector or a brand within a sector that aligns with the type of event that you're trying to put on. But everybody's out there trying to get sponsorship, be it football for sleeve sponsorship, let alone shirt sponsorship, and the biggest events are the ones that sponsors want to go to for obvious reasons, for the impact and the coverage that they get.
I can definitely say for artists, space offers a lot of value. If you can offer space to make, create, be, perhaps stay, you'd be surprised as to what can happen cyclically there. And don't underestimate creatives, artists. They might not have the same ways of working as the corporates, but they offer a lot of value. Unfortunately, I have to round it up there. I really am sorry. Please don't begrudge that we will have opportunities to speak in person, and we are here all this afternoon with breakout sessions, so hopefully you'll get to meet whoever you were going to pose your question to. We have the Slido poll results. Hopefully it will work. Yes, it does. So what we'll do is we'll probably leave that up. If anyone got any comments on what we have here. Can't read it. Here we go. What are the immediate key priorities for the sector, investment and support? I think there's no surprise there, particularly based on what we were saying. If you are an angel investor, give me a wink. Just a wink. Don't worry. It doesn't have to be too obvious, but you're very important. That we very much do need investment advice, I think, so across the board.
I think that's amazing, though. Delivering inclusive events is second in people's priorities. That's given the, Sebastian Go was saying that character is formed in difficult times, and everybody in this room has been through difficult times. So, that's really speaks to people's level of ambition. And
it's amazing. That feels really good that everyone is on that page. Okay, I think we should leave that up if possible. I think we can. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of the entire panel. You've all been awesome. Have a lovely break. I'll see you in a bit.
Thank you, Ruby.